Hi. All right. So today I'm not feeling great, but my commitment for this year is to make it through read this book in this format cover to cover. Um it would and with commentary I guess is how it's playing out right now, but if you've seen the book, you realize like this is a bit of a daunting task because it's more of a textbook than it is an actual book. But anyway, I'm feeling a little bit tired today, but the thing is if I just wait for the days when I feel good, I'm not going to be able to get this done in a year. So I guess I'm just laughing because I'm feeling a little bit goofy. So anyway, in the reading so far, I've gotten through chapter 1, and we landed in the last reading on the table 1.1, which is like it just outlines how the hubs relate to kind of some, I would say, well, it's the name of the chapter, or the name of the table is the Parinama hubs corresponding to body mind psychology theory and the cosmos. So yeah. uh there's that. So chapter 2, so the title of the chapter is The Method, a Map of the Hubs. And so what chapter 2 is, and this is something we're actually working on, a smaller version of the book that's less of a textbook and more of kind of like a pocket manual. And one of the things that in those edits is being made more clear is really what chapter 2 functions as, which is an outline. And like I guess you'd call it like wow, I like so I'll say one of the issues, I'm not super articulate either today, so congratulations on that. Um, but so this chapter 2 is kind of like a overlay, a map for all of the individual hub chapters in part 2. So again, the way the book is organized is you've got part 1, part 2, and part 3. First part that we're in right now is like an orientation. And so the first chapter is kind of like really introducing the ethos of the Parinama Method. Chapter 2 is a preparation for the structure of the chapters in part 2, the individual hub chapters. And then chapter 3 is a little bit it's kind of a teaser to where this ultimately goes, which introduces larger themes and bigger picture things that come out more in chapter 10 and in the 6th and 7th hubs. But it kind of brings a little of that early on, so it potentially can be applied to the reading as you kind of dip in chapter 4, which introduces the hubs. So so like the Parinama method, what it is it's taking the chronological development of a nervous system over the first 20 years of life, and it's identifying it by very like specific kind of markers and segments, and turning that into hubs. And so each of these hubs gets explored with 4 specific sort of, I don't know, overlays or whatever. And the first is learn. So it's learning what the hub is. And learning is understanding its initial development, learning like what it's composed of. So it's basics and then it's themes. And the understand part, so it's like learn what the hub is, understand is understanding the interruptions and stressors that impact the development and growth of the actual hub. And so this goes into just like factors that form it. And each chapter, hub chapter, is pretty robust as far as getting into kind of like what some of the like larger themes are, but it's not exhaustive. I mean, it really never could be. Um, but But there's that. And then it's know. So it's learn what the hub is, understand how its growth and development can be impacted. And then it's know the adaptations and holding patterns. So it's just to be born and to live, all of these hubs are going to be impacted by life. And the way that we can um, see them in ourselves is to look at like how we've adapted. And so to see whether whether we've overcompensated or, by inflating, or we're actually, whatever the opposite is like shrinking, whether we've done that. That's sort of like a helpful notion of sort of some of the things that shape the hub. But an important point to that is actually the way I'm talking about this is totally like um I don't know. I think is like it has a little bit backwards, because the interrupting and stressing factors, it's not really necessary um to like do a forensic analysis of what the things are that shape the hubs. This is more about recruiting the conscious part of ourselves to be able to see something and kind of dip into it. But what we're really looking for is the lasting patterns that are the result of the interruptions and stressors. And those are the things that are still playing out today as kind of reflexive behaviors and in beliefs, because a lot of times it's like these adaptations become like part of just who we think we are as like immovable aspects, but they can be shifted to become more dynamic. More on that later. And so there's the learn what the hub is, understanding the impacting stressors and interruptions, knowing what adaptation patterns look like and are in a particular hub. And then there's the exercises, or expanding with the techniques and exercises, which are about bringing it into an experiential, like yoking the sensation and the feeling in the body and processing like all things that have to do with the somatic aspect of the hub. Because for the first four hubs, most of what's programmed into us is like happens before episodic memory. So we're just not going to be able to talk to it. So it's like talking to your anxiety, or talking to like naturally arising emotions, talking to a sense of individuality or confidence. It just doesn't really like, it's like, it's kind of there's a reason that's like you're like there's nothing to be afraid of, and it lasts for 3 seconds, and it's like bounces off, and like you continue with the underlying pattern. Or you just like the reason talking for a lot of things, it's like it kind of doesn't get in deep enough, um is because of like this stuff being like coded into like a deeper layer of ourselves. So the techniques and exercises are about recruiting all the parts of your brain. And from the first chapter, where you're talking about Paul MacLean's triune brain, is you're recruiting the reflexes, you're recruiting the feeling and emotion, you're also recruiting the executive functioning. So you're bringing those all into play to really like come back and land um, with the particular hub, and working in it and developing a better relationship with it. And there's a lot that can be said with this, and I think it's said in the chapter if I would just start reading. it's but yeah, here we are. It's officially 11:40 on Sunday morning in Boston, so whatever that means, it's what's going on. So I'm just gonna read a little bit, see how far I can get before you know, this gets like a little too weird. Um, but yeah, if you're still along for the ride, I mean, I love you. Thank you. But okay. So this is chapter 2. We're cracking into, as mentioned before, it's called the method, a map of the hubs. And this is a map of each of the individual chapters in part 2. So Chapter begins with a quote by Lao Tzu, which is, "New beginnings are often disguised as painful endings." So, all 7 hubs contribute to the full expression of your life. No hub or its adaptations is superior to another. Yet most people have at least one hub or primary identification, and some have several. To expand the richness of life, we expand into the full spectrum of all hubs, which are influenced by both biological and psychological development. The hubs affect the entire body, each serving as a layer of our psychology, physiology, and consciousness. I added an extra word in there. In part, oh my gosh, yeah, this is like low key all over the place. In part 2 of the Parinama Method, each hub is given a chapter. This chapter provides an in-depth explanation of each section contained in part two's chapters. Each hub chapter elaborates on a hub's initial development, its basic principles, its themes, the stressors and interruptions that impact its development, and the adaptations and holding patterns that can occur in response to stressors, and concludes with techniques and exercises for practicing the method. So once again, I wrote something that kind of can summarize what it took me like 8 minutes to freestyle on. So there's that. So we've got that going for us here. All right. So initial development, the first part of the learning about the hub. So the initial development section presents the biological and psychological theory associated with the approximate initial age range of the hub's development. This includes exploration of key events that ultimately influence and inform the development of the hub. See figure 2.1. So the first hub, the infant, the initial age of development is second trimester to approximately 1 year of age. An infant should begin developing awareness of its physical body by feeling wanted and safe. In utero, everything is provided. As the spark of life begins to take root in the physical world, the growing fetus is still merged with the body of its mother. A shift occurs when transitioning into the outside world where physical separation from the mother takes place, and suddenly there's a need to cry and fuss to signal hunger and discomfort. When we're in the helpless state, we're given an indication of how responsive the world is, if it's safe, and if we can trust that our needs will be met. Yeah. The second hub, the baby. Initial stage of development is 6 months to approximately 2 years of age. The baby begins to sense both its separateness from others and the mystery of feelings arising within it. And here is the loop. Yeah, it's a good one. This is on page 16 and 17, which is the overview of the 7 hubs, the first 21 years. Yeah, just looking through that. This one's so actually before I continue reading, one of the things about this particular illustration and its like importance relative to the book is the connection between the bundles of, I'll call it, nervous tissue that are found along the spinal column, which correspond with these very specific aspects of the hubs. So in this particular diagram, it is kind of trying to break the stuff down so that kind of correlation can be illustrated. So, all right, back to the second hub's initial development. So mobility is compelled by the desire to touch, taste, and see its surroundings. And with the safe foundation of an attentive and trusted caregiver, the baby bravely begins to experiment with exploration. Feelings and emotion are the early form of communication, spontaneous crying, laughing, and fussing in response to arising internal needs and changes in the surrounding environment. This is when we expressed our early feelings and learned that our emotions meant what our emotions meant through the mirrored responses of our caregivers. I'm gonna try to read this like straightforward. The third hub, the toddler. Initial age of development is 18 months to 4 years of age. When a toddler begins to assert its individuality and independence, the phase is often called the terrible twos. The toddler is building confidence in its ability to operate in the world, but is still vulnerable and dependent on caregivers and is primarily oriented around self gratification. Healthy development encourages freedom while respecting boundaries and limitations of oneself and others. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one thing I think just as I'm reading this that's really arising is Um, well, this is a very, like, different kind of book as far as being really structured on science and coming from my viewpoint of operating in what I'd call, like, a more conventional world. Really the the book that really, like, sparked the inspiration for this framework is the work of Anna Dea Judith, and her psychology of the chakras, and the workshops and like every as a teacher and I've read her books like double digits number of times just for their inspiration. And as I mentioned, as I write about in the preface, it was like the book was really impactful for me, but the thing that um was like my addition was that first of all it's very new age, so a lot of it was, has kind of that thing of like asking someone to sort of like trust in something without, like what I'd consider like, like an overwhelming amount of diligence and exploration, which is fine. Some people like that. For me, I like it too, but I don't know. I need a little bit more for what I was about to do, and so, yeah, and I wrote this book off of it. So, anyway, so moving forward, the 4th hub, early childhood, um, initial age of development is from approximately 4 to 7 years of age. At around 4 years old, a shift begins to take place as a young child becomes interested in friendships with other children, and often there's a delightful move towards compassion and altruism. Now, expressions of kindness, along with blossoming social awareness, bring in a golden era. The stage is not without its challenges for children. It can be difficult to fit in, and young children will often alter their behavior to be accepted and will experience emotional turbulence as they navigate early socialization. Yeah. hmm I actually have something to say about that, but I'm just gonna help. I'm actually gonna soldier on. So the fifth hub, late childhood. Initial age of development from 7 to approximately 13 years of age. Communication begins to blossom with a rapid expansion of vocabulary and an ability to express thoughts and feelings. A co- as communication skills evolve quickly, a child may begin to journal and to talk to parents, friends, and siblings to process its experiences and to learn how to reconcile outer events with its inner life. Children may be taught to behave and to be polite to the extent that they hide what they think and feel. If the expression of fear, emotion, anger, and sadness aren't allowed, they often burrow into the subconscious and hide. Allowing ourselves to process thoughts and emotions by using words and creative expression is essential to finding integrity in this hub. We may say we hate a teacher or sibling in the heat of the moment, but if we're allowed to talk it through or write it, we realize that feelings are not facts and that one's personal truth often requires some processing to figure out. Yeah. The difference between truth and falsehood is experienced and explored as children become aware of discrepancies between what people say and what they do. As adults, feelings may arise that scare us because they are impolite and socially unacceptable. Like sometimes I hate being a mom. Um, it's in the book. That's it. Um, my cat's sitting next to me. Luke, I always love being your mom. If we're not used to processing difficult feelings and allowing them to pass, we can find ourselves suppressing and even denying them, fearing that they're absolute truths rather than passing emotions. Yeah, I'm going to read that again. If we're not used to processing difficult feelings and allowing them to pass, we can find ourselves suppressing and even denying them, fearing that they're absolute truths rather than passing emotions. Yeah, fifth hub. It's a good one. All right, moving on to the sixth hub, early adolescence. Initial age of development is adolescence. Starting at approximately 13 to 14 years of age, image and appearance, clothing, haircuts, and style trends communicate identity to the world outside in attempts to attract specific people. There's interest in experimenting with personal style, and teenagers often bond by connecting over shared taste in music, hobbies, sports, and entertainment. Outward appearance becomes a focus, while internal imagination and fantasy are also part of a teenager's life. Observing musicians, artists, and characters in a way to experiment with and try out different aspects of identity. Taking in images and information builds a library of inner knowledge that's both conscious and subconscious. These are the raw materials of our ideas and imagination. And the more we see, the more material we have to work with when we build and create our lives. Yeah, this gets much more this is a concept that's explored much more in depth in chapter 6 as is everything here. So the seventh hub, late adolescence, young adult. So the initial age of development is late teens and early adulthood. Teenagers begin to ask big questions about the meaning of their lives and the ideas like spirituality. How these questions are treated and how answers are provided shape this hub. Are the answers given as facts that support strict cultural or familial belief systems? Or is there encouragement to develop critical thinking and form one's own beliefs? This hub connects us to wonder, awe, knowledge, wisdom, and divinity. Indoctrination and rigid belief systems restrict the potential of this hub. A head filled with beliefs has no room for new information. Interference with learning or access to information blocks the ability to connect to the full expression of this hub. Teenagers having young adulthood on the horizon are thinking about what comes after childhood: college, university, trade school, or starting a job. There's a sense of important decisions needing to be made that will shape the rest of their lives. Many teens will contemplate their relationship to the larger world outside of their family and childhood communities. If a teen graduates from a highly controlled learning curriculum in high school or at home, perhaps it may start to experiment with what it finds naturally interesting. Because some folks continue to live under the programming of family and culture and avoid exploration of the beliefs, conditions, capacity, and holding patterns of lower hubs, this hub doesn't develop in all adults. This can be an outcome of fearing change or ambiguity, or having a reluctance to consider different beliefs, seeing them as disloyal and disrespectful to the family and community of origin. Whew. My God. Yeah. Yeah. As I'm reading this, it's like this book is it's pretty expansive in scope. Yeah, yeah. It's pretty expansive in scope. It's a it's a book that's about everything. But because of that, one of the things is because of that, it's about, the thing about approaching it as something that is, like, kind of like a traditional curriculum. The one of the things about how Parinama works is that, the first year is where the vast amount of the learning takes place, where you're learning, like, it's like this learning, understanding, knowing, and then expanding and exercising it, like, within each of the hubs. And building a working knowledge begins to, it creates a foundation for this to be a framework that is just very naturally operating in the world. And so, you know, if applying the techniques and exercises as they're found in chapter 11, um, becomes very, reflexive, I guess I would say, as just a really, like, functional operating model in the world. And, so it's not as much as it seems, as at first blush, as, kind of a overwhelming prospect. The gross analogy of, like, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. This is kinda how you approach this, and it's, instead of kind of searching the horizon for kind of being like, "Whoa, there's a lot more to come," it's staying right in whatever it is that's resonating in the moment, and just like trusting a different model of progress, of just being able to, like, to stay with whatever it is that is resonating, and explore that, and just kind of allow this process to have a bit more of a kind of naturally arising process, that it's just really a matter of showing up for on consistently, which is, also, this is a topic in for the third hub and in chapter 6. So anyway, thank you for staying with me. If you've made it this long, thank you. And I'm so grateful for everyone who is right now reading, who is in this process, who is practicing this. I've been really humbled to even, like, have people share with me the things that are happening, the impact that the practice is having. We're in this together. And I'm, like, as I'm even reading this, I'm like, huh, it's, yeah, yeah, we're like, I think it's like, I think one of the most important things for me right now is, how do I serve this, and how do I serve others with this, with this. I guess, there's I don't have a fancy way of saying it, but anyway, again, I want to say thank you. If if you if you subscribe, that really, like, that's very encouraging, for me. Any comments? Also, I really like hearing what people have to say. All it's I A lot of what I'm creating in terms of, like, the videos that I'm publishing are inspired by my work, which is, in a professional setting, as an executive, and also with folks that I work with, as, like, Parinama clients, and then also as I'm talking to readers. It's been, really inspiring, and also, like, interesting that themes arise throughout, from, over, like, periods of weeks and days, where, folks are kind of grappling and working with the, like, really similar things. So as a result of that, um, the sense of building a community around this and figuring out the way to do that, is, actively in process. So that is should be forthcoming in the next month or so, as a place for, to come together. So anyhow, I hope you have a really good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.